Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today we have an art journal tutorial, something a little bit different. Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun. My new art journal, I am trying to stretch myself to grow in my creative expression, and I'm trying to try new things. So that's what you're going to see. So here's about the only part in my Canson Mixed Media Art Journal that is going to be the same. I am taping off the edge to keep paint and modeling paste and everything out of the coils. This will give me a straight edge. Now I pulled out of my stash, I've got some brown paper that has been stamped, I've got some dictionary paper that's been stamped, and on the top, on the right-hand side, you can see I've got some teal and blue-green papers, and that is the inspiration for my page. Now, I'm trying something a little different. I'm going with a more neutral background, not as much color as you typically see, and I want to build lots of layers and texture in these beginning layers. So when you're putting down these papers, some of this will peek through. You will see glimpses of this in the end product. You will get texture that will give you added interest and value to your finished project. It also gets the creative juices flowing. Because I want it to go kind of neutral, I'm putting it down, and quite honestly, my brain is fighting this right now as I'm putting this down, because if you've watched my channel, you know I love using color. So I'm challenging myself to try something different. Now, a lot of this has been inspired by my new favorite binge watching pastime. I've been watching Shawn Petite, and you can check out her channel. She does some wonderfully textured stuff, and it won't take you long to realize the influence, the things that I've learned from her that I'm attempting to bring into my art journaling, into my art. I'm gluing this down with either matte medium or matte gel medium. Now I want some teal in there. I love the way the brown, the neutrals of the brown go with teal. And I just went to my stash. Some of these collage papers are very random bits. They're not exactly lovely, but once you rip them and you apply them in this context, they seem to take on a life of their own, and they really do guide the creative process. Other than wanting to go neutral and use some of the techniques and things that I've learned from Shawn's videos, I did not know where this was going to go. And that's a bit of a scary place to be, but I've done enough pages to know that you just keep going. And eventually you will make sense of it. But when you try something new, it feels awkward. It feels unnatural. So I am now scraping gesso across all these papers. And of course, there's highs and lows because it's all built up with texture, and that's going to catch in different places and in different ways. When I do apply paint, it's going to react differently if it lands on a gessoed part or a non-gessoed part. And again, this is something that Shawn does all the time in her videos. And I'm just scraping this on. It kind of pushes back and it kind of neutralizes the background and melds it all together. So now I'm liking the way some of that teal is pulling out. So I've grabbed a couple stencils and I grabbed Diox Purple and Phthalo Green. And when you mix them together, you get this tealy, navy-ish color, depending on how much blue or how much purple and how much phthalo green you have. So I'm just stenciling that in. And I'm looking at that and I'm just like, okay, I'm adding color. Not sure. Again, this is something that Sean has done in some of her videos, where as opposed to applying all over color, which is what I tend to do. So I'm very uncertain at this stage of the game. I just think, okay, well, now I'm going to add I was going to add magenta, and I ended up grabbing, I think it's Cobalt Violet. This is actually a golden brand. I bought a couple tubes. I got on sale, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try this out. And I grabbed the Sunflower Mandela stencil, and I'm stenciling that in. And, you know, I'm working in threes, because 3 is an odd number, kind of applying it. And I wish I had actually stopped here. But that's in hindsight. As I'm watching the video, I'm looking at it now from different eyes, and I think I could have made that work. But in the process, I didn't know what I wanted. So sometimes even when you are in the process, sometimes stopping long enough to really evaluate what you've got going on will give you time to make a plan. But I just plugged along and I kept adding more to the page. And right now I'm going to call this, while there's parts of it that I like, I'm going to call it the ugly stage. So I grabbed this layered wallpaper stencil, and I am got some thicker gesso here that's just thickened up over time. And I'm just pushing the gesso through the stencil. This does not give you a nice crisp stencil pattern. It gives you a very messy, it seeps under it a little bit, but you have that texture. You also have the texture when you pull off the pattern, kind of like squished paint. Again, and this also, because it's white, has pushed it back. Now I bought a new color paint. This is a transparent yellow iron oxide, I believe. And I decide, oh, I'm going to add this golden color on here. And of course I end up blobbing too much on there. So instead of putting it in 3 spots, I pretty much end up doing my usual and covering the entire page. Now this, because it's transparent, it goes over the other colors. It doesn't block them out. And so it changes the hue, kind of antiques it a little bit, which is, I was going for the rustic look, but I'm very much trying things out and playing, you know. Sean calls it the dance. You know, you add, you take off, you change, you put on, you turn the page a little bit. And I'm just, till it feels good. But like I said before, when you try something new, be prepared for it to feel awkward, and that's okay. So I'm liking this. Now, another thing that Sean does, so I'm trying it out, I'm doing it all on these pages. She uses glazing medium with burnt umber. And I don't think the mixture I didn't quite get right. And she puts it on and then she removes it. And it gets into the nooks and the crannies and it kind of makes it antique-y, it gives you that vintage feel. Because the background, we've layered these papers and then the modeling paste, it gives that effect. So again, I'm adding, taking off, and adding and taking off. And right about now, it's also kind of bringing in the whole page. It's making everything work together. There's some harmony amongst all the components now because it's been kind of neutralized first by the yellow iron oxide and now with the glazing medium and Prussian blue. So here's a close-up of some of the yummy texture from the gesso that I put through the stencil and the colors. And I'm loving this right now. It definitely, I'm thinking, okay, I got to the other side. Now what? And I played a little bit around focal points. And again, thanks to one of Sean's videos, she used some drywall tape, which is what you see me putting there. And I'm just gluing that down with gel medium. Now I put this pretty much smack dab in the middle. If I was doing this again, I would lower it so it wasn't in the middle. I think that would be more aesthetically pleasing of an orientation and composition. Just to be a little bit off center. Now, because I see through this and I'm thinking I'm going to stamp a word on here, I am putting a coat of gesso through this mesh. And I don't know if I'm looking for complete coverage, and in the end, that's where I go. I completely cover the mesh. You can still see the texture that it gives you, and it's a nice way of giving it a focal point. But I have this huge giant roll of this drywall mesh, so I need to start using it. And you can see that texture that's there. But of course, the white stripe through the middle. So now I'm thinking, am I going to go with the teal color on the back of the stripe? Am I going to go with the magenta color? Nope, I'm going to stay neutral. So I get the glazing medium out and I get the yellow iron oxide and I'm just pushing that into the mesh as well, rubbing it back and getting that depth of color that I want. So my goal here was to keep this fairly neutral forward. Another thing, when you try something new, you learn a lot as you go through the process. You can't just do what you normally do. You have to solve problems. You get different problems that you need to solve. And so you learn. And then you may take that learning forward into the next project. I don't want this all one tone, so I'm kind of dry brushing it with a little bit of the darker umber. Now I grabbed this Crafters Workshop stencil. It's one of their rustic sign stencils, but I just am going to use the word grow because that's a theme. The goal of this art journal is to grow. Take challenges, set up challenges for myself, take risks, all those things that are in the quote. So when I use this black modeling paste, at this point, and I lifted that up, the black oh my gosh, this is where it was absolutely, I loved it. Then I decided I'm going to splatter some black, and I just have thin black paint in this container that I do a lot of splattering lately, so I just pre-mixed it. I also was emptying a tube of black paint, so I scraped it all up and I made myself a pot of splatter paint. And this just introduces the black to the other parts of this art journal page. And you can see the splatter, you got the black, you got So I'm removing the tape. I did go around with a charcoal, my woodless charcoal pencil, and shade around the outside edges, and that footage must have gotten lost. Now I have this butterfly that's the exact shade teal blue that I have in the background, so I'm going to put that on there. I had this empty space that just needed something. I'm gluing that down with gel medium. And you're going to see some close-up pictures of this. Thank you so much for joining me. The stencil links can be found in the description box below. We'll see you for the next video. Don't forget, take a chance, try something new.